Hi, my name is Matthew Croucher and I'm a specialist in older persons' mental health. The context of all this thinking about alcohol in our bodies is thinking about falls. That's why you're here, to try and lower your risk of falls. But why is falling such a big deal anyway? And what has alcohol got to do with that? That's what we're going to think through today. In thinking about falls, I still want to bring up another part of the body that alcohol can have an effect on. I want to think about bones. One of the big reasons why falling is such a big deal as we're getting older is that we can snap. We tend not to bounce, but in our 70s, maybe 80s, especially our 90s, we might break. And it's broken bones are the big issue. Now, if that's never happened to you, at least never happened to you since you were a child or a teenager, you might think, well, I mean, broken bones are a bad thing. I don't want to break a bone, but you just go to hospital, you get a cast, you'll be fine. It's not true. One of the bones that can snap as we get older, especially when we fall, is the top part of our femur, that big bone that goes from our knee up to our hip. This is called a fractured neck of the femur, right up the top. Did you know that a significant proportion of older people that go to hospital with a fractured neck of femur die from this injury? It's not the same as breaking your arm and putting it in a cast. For a start, you can't have a cast for a fractured neck of femur. For a second, those older New Zealanders that break their neck of femur are already not doing that well. The fact that that big bone in the body has broken is a sign that overall they are more frail now. And frailty is the lack of the ability to bounce back from a big injury. That's what it is. As we get older, we're more frail. If we're frail, we can fall. If we fall, we can break. It's like a vicious circle. And if we break that bone because we're frail, we can die. So it's a big ticket item. We do not want to be breaking our bones as we get older. Now, part of that, of course, is avoiding falling in the first place. But alcohol raises my risk of falling. It raises it because I might be drunk. Now, not every one of us that drinks gets drunk. But those of us that do just need to accept that this is a high-risk time when I might fall over and then break something. But alcohol increases our risk of falling, especially as we're older, separate from being drunk. It does that by changing how our nerves are working. We've talked about those long nerves to the feet so that my balance isn't so good anymore, especially on uneven ground. We've talked about how alcohol can affect how my brain is working. And that's very important for judging how I can walk in a safe way. That increases our risk of falling. And by the time we have a dementia illness, my risk of falling will really go up. We've talked about how muscles, the strength in our body, the muscles that keep us upright can be affected by alcohol over the years, again, not as a one-off, but that will increase my risk of falling. We've also talked about the link between alcohol and our total nutrition and the special vitamins that we need to stay healthy. That can increase my risk of falling. All these things are coming into play. But then alcohol can also affect our bones. Now, there's a bit of a complicated story here. Some of you may have heard, in fact, that alcohol lowers my risk of osteoporosis or thinning bones. Now, that may actually be true for some people. The reason isn't a good reason. The reason is that when we drink a moderate to high amount of alcohol over the years, we make more estrogen in our bodies. And for women, the loss of estrogen after the change of life, after menopause, is the big reason that the bones of New Zealand women start to thin out quite rapidly. So you might think, well, estrogen's a good thing there for them. But actually, we're not designed for high doses of estrogen. Men are certainly not designed for that. As you'll know, anytime you meet someone who drinks a lot of alcohol and they've developed the man boob kind of problem, too much alcohol, it's not just fat, it's also the estrogen. But actually for women, the jury is very mixed on its opinion, if you like, the scientific jury, about whether having a little bit of extra estrogen in your body in older age because of drinking is a good thing or a bad thing. We're not so sure. So if you've read somewhere that drinking alcohol can protect you from osteoporosis, from the thinning bones, I'd actually take that with a grain of salt. That may be true for some women in particular, and good luck to them, but it's probably not true for the average New Zealander that's just been drinking a little bit too much alcohol over the years. It affects the balance of our hormones, it affects how our bones are being built up and broken down. So falls turn out to be very important for older people. Kiwis are dying from falls-related injuries in old age, and it's not rare. They don't die then and there on the floor that often, but they die within a month of what is a nasty, nasty injury with the risk of serious fractures like the fractured neck of femur. Alcohol is increasing our risk of those falls as we age, and it's also increasing the risk that we will snap instead of bounce when we hit the floor. We don't want to fall, we don't want to snap. These are important reasons to think about the role of alcohol in our lives, especially as we're getting older. We're going to go on now to think about, unfortunately, yet more ways that alcohol can affect us, which we'd probably want to avoid if we could. Thanks for listening today.